In 1868, the German elephant tusk hunter Adam Renders stumbled upon a 10-meter wall in the South African forest. While walking along the wall, Renders hoped to find an entrance, since he expected people to be here. However, to his surprise, he discovered that he had returned to the point from which he had begun, after having made a circle. 3 years later, Adam Renders led the German geologist Karl Mach to the ruins of the found structure. Mach expounded the theory that Zimbabwe was in the mythical country of Ophir, in which King Solomon extracted gold and precious stones. It was just one of the many versions with which they tried to explain the mystery of Zimbabwe. It should be noted that one of the African states borrowed a name from these ruins. The former southern Rhodesia is now called Zimbabwe. The mystery of the Dogon tribe, the people with whom the secret is hidden in the depths of antiquity. It's something impressive. Two French researchers, D. Baniast and J. L. Duvent, recently made public the result of their latest research on a star, one of the brightest in the sky and which is at a distance of 8.7 light-years from the Earth. According to its conclusion, Sirius is a stellar system formed by 3 stars and not by 2, as from the middle of the last century it assured our astronomy, and they came to that conclusion by carefully studying the variations in the orbit of the Sirius system from 1862 to the present day, which led them to believe that there was a third star body that was influencing its course. Baniast and Duvent deduced, in addition, that the new Sirius C is a red dwarf, a class of star that is 500 times less massive than the Sun and very little bright, for whose optical discovery, that still has not been confirmed, it will be necessary to use the most powerful telescopes in the immediate future. Naturally, the Dogons have their calendar, but the dates for the celebration of the Sigi are obtained following an ancestral method, in nothing related to the Sun, Sirius, or the Moon, are fixed in a crack that exists in a rock called Yogo located in the Yogo Dogoro town center, and the curious thing is that this slit lights up with a red glow in the year that precedes the Sigi ceremony. The outskirts of the town also appear elongated pumpkins that no one seems to have planted. These events make the Council of Elders meet, with the help of hogs and beer barrels that are preserved religiously, indicate the date of the celebration. By the number of barrels conserved, it is calculated that they have been doing this ceremony since the 12th century. The territory where the Dogona majority is located is bisected by the Bandiagara Fault, which has a vertical drop of 150 meters in the low areas and 300 meters in the high ones, averaging 200 meters over most of the length of the course. 150 km in the southeast of the fault lies the arid plain of Sinogondo, and to the northeast the Bandiagara Plateau. Historically, the Dogon people settled in the area of Bandiagara as a result of the collective refusal of this ethnic group to convert to Islam around 1000 years ago. The insecurity faced by the Dogons as a result of the pressure imposed by other Muslim peoples led them to move and install their villages in defensible positions on steep walls and hills. Another factor that influenced the choice of the location of their villages was water. The Niger River is nearby, and in the sandstone of its location, a creek is born at the foot of the cliff during the wet season. Among the Dogons there are many oral traditions that tell the story of their origin. One of them explains that they come from the Mande, located towards the southwest of the cliffs of Bandiagara, near Bamako. According to this oral tradition, the first Dogon site was established at the extreme southwest end of the Kaniane escarpment. Towards century 15, the Dogons moved towards the north, along this escarpadura, arriving until the region of Sanga. Other oral stories situate the origin of the Dogons to the west, beyond the Niger River, or affirm that the Dogon people come from the east. It is likely that the current Dogons are made up of multiple groups of diverse origin that migrated to escape Islamization. Without Nommo, he says, it would not have been possible to create the earth, because the earth was molded from mud, and that is from the water, that is, from the Nommo, that is where life comes from. The vital force of the earth is water. God shaped the earth with water. The blood is also made of water. Even in a stone is that strength, so that it is mixed in everything. The most advanced thing that the Dogons have in science today is medicine. The elders practice it together with divination, with wonderful results, and without the fetishistic rituals common to all the tribes of Black Africa. In fact, the elderly claim not to be witches, but remain silent when asked how they perform cures and predictions with such accuracy. From what little they speak, it has been possible to deduce that they are based on the unity of man with nature and on the relationship between opposites, life with death, creation with destruction, the great with the small, health with the disease. What is derived from this story? The visit of civilizing aliens from Sirius. In fact, this mythical story, which also seems to express is the very logical and human concern for the water of a farming people that lives in a region where droughts are frequent, as in the Sahel. Then appear the 8 secondary Nommos, descendants of the primordial human couple created by Amma. Ogademali does not describe them completely, but if he leaves us an interesting fact, he does not tell us that they were amphibians, but dual and bisexual, capable of fertilizing themselves by a special dispensation, granted only to them. An extraordinary feature, which has not found an echo among the disseminators of the mystery of Sirius. For the rest, nothing in the story makes us suppose that its appearance was as peculiar as that of the original Nommo. The existence of these Nommos takes place between various incidents, which include a going to heaven, abducted perhaps, and then the return to the earth, although all the Sirius still does not appear. During the stay of the Nommos in the sky we find something familiar and they mention us, finally, to the famous digit Aria. But with some surprise we see that Ogademali does not refer to any invisible and heavy star, but strictly to the point of Phanyo, digit Aria exilis. Apparently, Amma had given the 8 Nommos 8 different grains to feed on, the last of which was precisely the Phanyo, expressly rejected by the first ancestor when it was given to him, on the pretext that it was very small and difficult to prepare. This small grain would ultimately cause the 8 ancestors to finally return to Earth, although their astronomical connotation does not appear anywhere. Now, when the forest surrounding the mysterious building is cut, rocks can be seen the distance and, a little further, in the valley, there is an oval wall of the fortress. The wall surrounds a space of about 2 football fields. This ellipse is now called the residence of the Tsar, although behind the wall they found nothing that usually serves as decorations for the royal court. The height of the wall surrounding the residence of the Tsar is 10 m, the average thickness is 4.5 m. European sources mention this structure for the first time in the 16th century. In particular, the Portuguese historian Juan de Barros wrote, "The natives call this building Zimbabwe. No one knows by whom and when it was built, because the locals do not have written language, and there are no oral traditions about this. It is true, they claim that Zimbabwe was built by the devil, because it supposedly has such properties in the language of the people of Shona. Zimbabwe means venerated home, suggesting a possible connection of this object with religion. The ruins of Zimbabwe are not the only ones in Mozambique. Around the city of Nova Sofala, ruins of the order of hundreds of such structures were found, smaller in size but in a similar way. But this does not solve the problem. From the large oval there are smaller ovals, then a circle of small walls and, finally, a wall parallel to the main wall. Between the 2 walls there is a narrow passage." He played the role of observer. However, this version was wrong. It was believed that the building is a fortress. The English archaeologist Gertrude Cotton Thompson, who excavated the site in 1929, suggested that there is a tomb below the tower. However, this assumption is not justified either. The question of the appointment of the tower until now remains open. If it is accepted that the Dogon do indeed possess extraordinary and precise astronomical knowledge that is well above their technological capabilities, it is mandatory to ask how they obtained that information. Robert Temple's response is already known. From visitors from outer space coming from Sirius, we have already seen when and how that contact was produced in Temple's opinion. Some representatives of the Afrocentric movement, like Adams, Van Sertine, and Welsing, have, on the other hand, no less interesting proposals, either that the extreme sharpness of the dark eyes, of the black people allow them to distinguish Sirius B at a glance, or that the melanin acts in a similar way to an infrared telescope, or maybe through the Egyptians, who, as nobody knows, had powerful telescopes, and, moreover, they were black. None of them, these three hypotheses, to call them in some way, has the least foundation. The alleged Egyptian telescope is based on a supposed Russian discovery of a supposedly perfectly spherical lens, that even in the case, more than doubtful, that there was no could serve to build a telescope useful in any way. A much more sober line of argument was offered by Ian Ridpath and Carl Sagan, among others, in the controversy that arose as a result of the publication of the Sirius Mystery. Sagan and Ridpath suggested that the modern astronomical concepts included within the Dogon mythology could have been assimilated by it only in a very recent time, possibly very soon before the myths were recorded by Griel and his team in the 1930s and 1940s. In support of this hypothesis, they noted that by then all the astronomical knowledge attributed to the Dogon, including a few obvious errors, was already established in modern astronomy for some time or so. For example, the companion of Sirius was known since 1862. It is clear that the Dogon could not have acquired that information without having been in contact with a technologically advanced civilization. However, according to the proposal of Sagan and Ridpath, that civilization was probably terrestrial rather than extraterrestrial. The Dogons could have received this knowledge from travelers, explorers, traders, or missionaries, integrating them without major conflicts within the framework of their traditional myths. They may also have received them through the local French schools, or perhaps they heard them in Europe, those members of the ethnic group that fought in the French army during World War I. It is believed that the Dogons are of Egyptian descent, and its astronomical tradition goes back thousands of years ago, until 3200 A. For centuries, the Dogons managed to keep themselves isolated from neighboring influences and from capture by Islamic slave traders. Its cultural, oral, and written history remained miraculously intact. What they kept hidden from the rest of the world is quite surprising. According to one of their oldest legends, a race called Nommos visited Earth from the star Sirius many millennia ago. The Dogon learned from the Nommos that there was a companion star, Sirius B, orbiting the star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky near the constellation of Orion, from which the Nommos came. They landed on Earth in an ark that made a decent yarn on the ground with great noise and wind. This nonsensical tower and the surrounding wall interested the researcher Eric von Däniken. He drew a plan for Zimbabwe and, after analyzing it, presented an interesting idea. In northwest Africa is the Republic of Mali, which houses a town called Dogon. The Dogon tribe has been fairly well studied by ethnologists, particularly French. Every 50 years, the Dogons celebrate the festival very solemnly, which they call Sigi. But why exactly 50 years? After all, this is so long that not all Dogons live to such an age, and therefore, not all members of the tribe at least once in their life can participate in the celebration of this holiday. But scientists could establish what it is connected to in his work, The Science of the Dogon. Scranton describes the incredible accuracy with which the people of Dogon could use their language and symbols to explain complex scientific facts that would not be discovered in the West until the 20th century. However, scholars of the mainstream who reject the idea of this kind of advanced understanding of Sirius by a tribe considered primitive, proclaim that the mystery of Dogon Sirius is nothing more than a deception of 1965 by two French anthropologists Grisel and Dierderlin. The two were the first to reveal such an unusual idea to the public in an unprecedented filmed interview. Since then, not a single anthropologist has corroborated the findings, although the subject has been examined to a large extent by independent researchers. But Laird quickly points out that there are many more mysteries surrounding the knowledge of the Dogon priest, Hagen, that cannot be attributed to a single interview.
If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.